The National Desk, America's News, now.
Pure, unadulterated evil is unleashed on this world.
1 week since Hamas's unprecedented attacks on Israel, hundreds dead, thousands hurt, the world in shock.
Our hearts may be broken, but our resolve is clear.
Horrific images and even more disturbing first-hand accounts of the violence on the ground.
The optimistic scenario here is that she's held hostage in Gaza and not dead on the street of the kibbutz where we grew up.
How do you explain or understand that a whole village is gone?
Growing concern that other terror groups will act, driving the death toll even higher.
I know we're going to win, but the question is what the cost is going to be. If we are pushed, we can fight another front.
And the resounding question, how is this planned without the world noticing? From the nation's capital, this is a special edition of the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and it has been 1 week since Hamas launched unprecedented attacks on Israeli soil, killing hundreds of people. Over the next hour, we are taking an in-depth look at this conflict, giving you the context that brought us to this point, as well as what it means for the United States. Before we begin, we want to warn you that some of this video will be difficult to watch, but we believe it's important to share in order to understand the severity of what's happening on the ground. More than 2,000 people are dead in Israel and Gaza. Some were the victims of bombing, others suffering from unimaginable atrocities carried out by Hamas terrorists. Entire families were gunned down, some found in shelters and safe rooms. Dozens more people are being held against their will in Gaza. Video from social media shows Hamas kidnapping women and children. An international effort now underway to bring them home. And survivors in anguish across the country, Israel calling this their 9/11. The shooting at a music festival marking the deadliest civilian attack in the nation's history. The situation on the ground is changing by the hour. The State Department confirming at least 27 American citizens are among the dead, several more still missing. Hamas launched its surprise attack against Israel in the early hours of Saturday morning. Air raid sirens sounded at 6:30 a.m., warning Israelis of an attack in progress. The IDF estimates that Hamas launched more than 2,000 rockets. Hamas immediately claimed responsibility for the attack, and 30 minutes later, the ground assault began. Heavily armed militants broke through the defensive barrier between Israel and Gaza. They infiltrated towns, killing some civilians and taking others hostage. This is when some of the most shocking violence occurred, including the music festival massacre that left 260 dead. Hours later, Israel began retaliatory strikes, and Prime Minister Netanyahu makes his first public statement telling the world Israel is at war. That night, he ordered an extensive mobilization of 300,000 reserve forces. It's the largest and fastest mobilization in Israel's history. The IDF promising the enemy will pay an unprecedented price. The United States was quick to respond, condemning the attack and offering assistance. This is video of the first weapons delivery arriving in Israel days after the initial attack. President Biden promising long-term support.
I just got off the phone with a third call with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and I told him the United States experience what Israel is experiencing. Our response will be swift, decisive, and overwhelming.
As we hit the 1 week milestone, many now worry this could become a lengthy conflict. Chief political correspondent Scott Thuman joining us now. He's reported extensively over the years from the Middle East, including inside Israel as well as Palestinian territories. Scott, what are your contacts currently in the middle of this war telling you?
Well, Dee Dee, I had a conversation with the deputy mayor of Jerusalem about Why now? What role America may play in all of this? How it could go on for much longer than previous conflicts, and of course, what she thinks sparked this particular attack.
In their charter, it says that they want to destroy Israel. They don't want any type of two-state solution. They don't want to share anything. They want the complete annihilation of Israel and all the Jews in it. And in the last 5-6 years, a war almost every year. And so they've been preparing and they've tried. They built tunnels and we found the tunnels and we closed up the tunnels. And the tunnels that they were building were straight into civilian centers. So they were obviously planning a civilian attack for a long, long time. And for some reason, they managed to succeed this time.
The timing, she says, not an accident.
Their big backer, their big puppet master here is Iran. And Iran is very angry about the fact that Israel, with the American administration's help, was on the way to actually normalizing ties with Saudi Arabia. So none of this is a coincidence. They want to, take over the entire world. This is their very toxic ideology. And so these are the reasons I think this happened, and this happened now.
She tells me Israel also hasn't unleashed its full arsenal, but will if others choose to attack as well.
We can handle anything. We only use a fraction of our military might because we have a moral code of fighting wars. But if we are pushed, we can fight another front. We would rather not, but we can do it. And I think America made it very clear to all the people listening that that would be a bad idea for them.
Ultimately, what is it you would want from Washington and from the international community at large?
Well, I think we're getting from Washington exactly the moral clarity that we needed, saying these are the bad guys, make no mistake. From the rest of the world, what we want them to let us do is dismantle the terrorist infrastructure that has caused so much pain. Don't get involved. The scenes from Gaza are not going to be pretty in the next few days, and we will do our maximum to reduce innocent losses. But let us uproot this evil that we have on our border.
How do you see all of this ending?
I know we're going to win, but the question is what the cost is going to be. So I don't know at this point. I know it's not going to be short. It's not going to be a week's war like we've had in the last few years. I think it's going to take a good few weeks.
So confident of victory, but uncertain over how long it could last. By the way, she's in Jerusalem, considered a religious center for Muslims and Jews, and both have staked claim to land in the Holy City. She claims they are aware of radical cells living within those walls, but says the Israeli police presence is so strong there, she hopes the threats will remain nothing more than that. Didi?
Scott, thank you. We'll be hearing from Scott several more times over the next hour. In response to the attack, Israel launching widespread and relentless airstrikes. The Israeli Defense Force sharing this video of the moment a high-rise was leveled in Gaza. They've told civilians to leave their homes and take shelter, promising to continue the strikes. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying Israel's actions will reverberate for generations. Israel mobilized more than 360,000 military reservists in the days after the attack, also moving more military equipment near Gaza. The move follows the steps Israel took ahead of its 2008 and 2014 ground invasions, leading many to believe that could be their next step. Still to come here on the National Desk, we are taking you to the bomb shelter capital of the world. How the border city, who should be more prepared than anyone else for the attack, was still caught off guard. And we're remembering the Americans killed in Israel. How their communities are remembering the legacy of their lives cut short. You're watching a special edition of the National Desk. This video shows the moment Hamas rockets arrived in Sderot, which is just 2 miles from Gaza. The proximity giving the more than 3,000 people who live there extremely limited time to react. This is the aftermath of those strikes. Hamas militants occupied the police station. At least 30 officers were killed during a firefight there. It took responding Israeli Defense Forces more than 24 hours to regain control. But soldiers say dozens of civilians lost their lives there. It's along that southern border of Israel, where it borders Gaza, that many of the worst atrocities have occurred and where Israeli troops have been staging for more fighting. It's also where our Scott Thuman has spent time over the years reporting. And Scott, you had a look at just how difficult life is there.
Yeah, it certainly is, Dee Dee. A large majority of the fighting did take place, as you pointed out, there on the border with the Gaza Strip in towns and cities that had almost no warning of what was about to happen. We visited one of those towns called Sderot 2 years ago to show you how even then every second matters.
The police station in Sderot, Israel. Nothing but rubble now. But 2 years ago, when we were here on assignment for Full Measure, a much different scene. On display outside the police station then, shelves packed with the remains of rockets that had been launched at residents here. In the center of town, memorials with the names of the dead. And hardest to miss, these several hundred bomb shelters, seemingly every few blocks, outside restaurants, offices, schools, even playgrounds doubling as a safe place. It is quite literally called the bomb shelter capital of the world.
So if the siren went off, if the alarm went off, you just leave everything and run?
Yes. You always have the fear that something is going to explode in your house or something.
How often do you hear the sirens, the warnings?
Many times.
You can see just behind me here that boundary line where the fencing is. Gaza on one side, we're about 100 yards on the Israeli side. That proximity is what makes this area a top target for rocket fire from Hamas.
Which means residents here have only about 15 seconds to find protection when the alarms sound.
The siren goes off, and if we're lucky, we have 15 seconds to get to shelter. And when you drive around with your children in the car, you have to get them out of the seats and find a shelter. So which child do you love more? Or which child do you take out of the car? You have 15 seconds. 15 seconds is... it's nothing, actually.
As a therapist, Ephraim Rosenfeld was in constant demand, and when that job was done, he often found himself behind the wheel with his second job, transporting the dead. All, he says, just part of life in the bomb shelter capital of the world.
And now talk that all residents there in Sderot and surrounding towns can or should be armed for what happens next. Dee Dee.
Powerful insight. Scott, thank you. We are hearing from those who lost their loved ones in this war, from a peace activist living in Israel as an advocate to a man whose rabbi says he was rediscovering his faith. We're hearing their stories from those closest to them. And still to come, thousands of miles from the war zone, worship centers in the U.S. are revisiting their security. The recent guidance released from the FBI. Throughout the week, we've been learning more about the innocent people killed in the attack. Loved ones are now coming forward to share their photos and their stories. Deborah and Shlomi Matthias died when terrorists broke into their home. Look right here. After trying to secure the door, they were killed by gunfire while shielding their children who survived the attack. Daniel Ben Sr. was born in Los Angeles but lived in Israel for most of her life. She died when the music festival where she was working came under attack. Eagle and Amit Vox were brothers who lived in Netiv Asara, which borders Gaza. They were on the town's security team and died, protecting their neighbors from the incoming terrorists. The State Department says at least 27 American citizens were killed in Israel, each of them leaving behind heartbroken families and communities. Our reporters across the country speaking with those closest to them about their legacies.
I think everybody's in shock.
A University of Washington graduate brutally killed over the weekend.
This wonderful human being was killed who had no malice toward either side or towards anyone, really. He was a beautiful human being.
Katzman's mother says he was found dead inside his apartment in Israel after Hamas soldiers burst into his home.
We understand that he and his neighbor were hiding in a closet at 2:30 a.m. on Sunday morning, that they found his body.
A distinguished scholar, his peers tell me he was passionate about his work.
I see now the importance of his work in an even greater way than when he first came.
His research focusing on the interrelations of religion and politics in the Middle East. Born in Israel, Katzman found his way to the Pacific Northwest.
He was just a really good guy. He, the sort of person I think everybody wants to get to know.
Professor James Wellman even visited him in Israel, a memory he says he's forever grateful for.
No one knew it was coming, of course, and I had texted him, 3 or 4 days ago and said, hey, are you okay? And I didn't hear back. This weekend was heart-wrenching. I still feel tears, and I can't believe he's gone.
He was just a delightful young man.
Rabbi Benny Zippel says 24-year-old Lotan Abir, the Utah man killed in Israel over the weekend, was his beloved student.
He came here from Israel. He was in his early 20s. He was just in the process of rediscovering his Jewishness with me. And he went back for the holidays to Israel, and he lost his life.
Just heartbreaking. All of us at the National Desk are thinking of their loved ones during this incredibly difficult time. As we mentioned earlier, the government is involved in an international effort to bring hostages home. The Defense Department has offered special operations and planning support. While that process unfolds in the Middle East, intelligence agencies are tracking potential threats to the homeland. The FBI says it's not aware of any credible threats to American soil, but the National Security Council said any perceived risk to American citizens is taken seriously no matter where it happens.
And you can't take a threat like that lightly. You got to take it seriously because of the barbarity that Hamas has already shown that they're capable of. So obviously, we're watching it very, very closely.
Out of an abundance of caution, cities across the country are ramping up security around Jewish community centers and synagogues. The National Desk's Angelo Brown spoke with the National Association of Police about the best ways to protect places of worship.
The FBI releasing a report there's no credible threat from Hamas to the U.S. homeland, but law enforcement not taking any chances. Our team in Salt Lake City reporting Jewish synagogues across Utah forced to evacuate Sunday morning due to bomb threats. Sergeant Bessie Smith, spokesperson for the National Police Association.
We have got to go back to an immediate post 9/11-01 atmosphere in American law enforcement.
New York City has the largest Jewish population in the world outside of Israel. New York's governor increasing surveillance at all possible Jewish targets on Sunday.
Immediately, we deployed our state police to be activated.
New Jersey's Attorney General also announcing law enforcement will increase patrols. The mayor of Houston, Texas, enhancing security measures at synagogue and other potential venues. Jonathan Greenblatt, CEO of the Anti-Defamation League.
Think about that world where a Jewish community center has to fortify itself like a fortress because of fear of attacks from people who hate Jews. All this while they're still counting the bodies in Israel. It's a terrible situation.
The National Police Association also warning threats could be more widespread.
The type of attacks that we may see won't just be on a synagogue or a Jewish school, but it could be anything that is perceived to be extremely American.
Possible new threats coming at the same time anti-Semitism is rising right here in the U.S. The ADL says incidents are up 36% in 2022. Reporting in Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
The National Desk partnering with I-24 News to bring you in-depth coverage of the situation on the ground in Israel, what they're seeing in the hardest hit areas, and why this reporting is becoming so important in the fight against misinformation. The National Desk is partnering with I-24 News to bring you accurate, on-the-ground coverage of the situation. Their international team is based in Tel Aviv and is spread out across the country right now. We do want to warn you, some of the descriptions of violence you're about to hear are graphic.
I'm talking to some of the soldiers, and they say what they've witnessed as they've been walking through these different houses, these different communities. Babies, their heads cut off. That's what they said. Gunned down, families completely gunned down in their beds. You can see some of these soldiers right now comforting each other. Many of them reserves who jumped into action, leaving their own families behind as well.
This is Kibbutz Be'eri, one of the communities that took the hardest hit. And there you can see for yourselves sheer devastation, sheer destruction. Homes completely burnt, destroyed. The smell cannot be passed on television, but that's here as well. Homes completely destroyed. In those homes that you now see destroyed, there were whole families inside. They were there, and you can just imagine what they went through, the horror they went through.
And that coverage becoming even more important as the war intensifies. The European Union has issued warnings to both X, formerly known as Twitter, and Meta, which is Facebook's parent company, over misinformation posted on the platforms. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar explains the challenges social media companies are now up against.
As violence and chaos broke out in Israel Saturday, online, misinformation started spreading quickly. This now suspended account on X, formerly known as Twitter, pretending to be the Jerusalem Post, falsely stated Israel's prime minister was taken to the hospital. This video, taken in Egypt and posted to TikTok in late September, was shared on X by a now suspended user claiming it was of members of Hamas entering Israel. Fact-checkers point out this clip, shared by Israeli media personality Hanania Naftali, claiming to be Israel striking Gaza, was actually a scene in Idlib, Syria. Elon Musk facing criticism for recommending users follow War Monitor and OSINT Defender, two accounts with a track record of spreading misinformation. Musk later deleted the tweet, then posted, as always, please try stay as close to the truth as possible, even for stuff you don't like. X has also been criticized for allowing the spread of mis- and disinformation about Russia's war in Ukraine through Blue or Premium accounts, a subscription service that prioritizes that user's replies. Critics say allowing users to purchase a blue checkmark makes it difficult to know who's reputable and who's not. X says, depending on a post's potential for offline harm, it will limit amplification of or remove misleading content. Otherwise, it may label content to provide context. But misinformation can be difficult to quell. Earlier this year, a University of Southern California study involving more than 2,400 Facebook users found platforms play a large role in the spread of false information by rewarding users for habitually sharing posts. In the European Union, tech companies are required by law to actively protect users from false and harmful content. No such law exists in the U.S. Misinformation fueling tension online, adding to the chaos on the ground. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nashar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
The X social media platform has begun removing a network of at least 67 accounts that appear to be coordinating a campaign of posting false inflammatory content related to the war between Israel and Hamas. So to come on our special edition of the National Desk, we are looking at the intelligence failure ahead of this attack and whether the U.S. is at risk for a breakdown of that scale. And we're tracking the possibility of a second front in this conflict. Chief political correspondent Scott Thuman explains the ongoing threat from a second terror group. You're watching a special edition of the National Desk, America's News Now.
The National Desk, America's News Now.
If the intelligence failed in Israel, our intelligence, I've got concerns about our own homeland.
The unprecedented attack on Israel, planned and executed without tipping off the world's most powerful militaries. The resounding question, how?
We have said since the beginning that Iran is complicit in this attack.
In its wake, calls for new crackdowns.
We should be doing all we can to cut off the supply of cash, both to Tehran and the terrorist organizations themselves.
And demands to revisit security in the U.S.
We need an immediate assessment of our own areas of weakness and a glaring weakness in our own southern border.
From the nation's capital, this is a special edition of the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Didi Gatton, and a week after Hamas's surprise attack on Israel, questions now surfacing as to how they were able to plan and execute this attack without tipping off two of the world's most advanced military forces. Lawmakers on the House Foreign Affairs Committee say Egypt warned Israel of Hamas's plans 3 days before the attack. They did not share any other details, saying it's classified. Israel's chief military spokesman has acknowledged the intelligence breakdown, but said the full investigation won't get underway until after the war. But new information is surfacing about the attack. A Hamas leader admitting on Russia TV that it had been in the works for years, with the group disguising their preparations. The National Desk Christine Frizzell explains.
We're also worried about jihadist groups like in Syria. We have the Iran-backed Shia militia groups in Iraq, and you have all sorts of jihadist groups. That is our worst nightmare.
The massacre in Israel apparently planned for 2 years. Another Hamas leader admitting in an interview with Russia TV that under the guise of providing welfare, Hamas was actually planning for warfare.
في غزة وبدها تدير بالها على 1.5 مليون فلسطيني وملتهية وخلص تركت المقاومة لكن حماس من تحت الطاولة.
The interview, translated by the group Memory, a Middle Eastern research institute co-founded by Israeli Americans, also included a demand members of Hamas detained in the United States be released.
We obviously take seriously our responsibilities to get Americans held overseas back with their families. We have in the past entered into negotiations to do exactly that. And we have not foreclosed any option right now in terms of these particular hostages.
These developments come as Israel has pounded Gaza for days, including at places of worship, schools, and refugee camps. Retaliation for what Hamas calls the Al-Aqsa flood operation, the brutal murder of men, women, and children in Israel. It says it carried out in response to decades of violence against and oppression of Palestinians. A vicious cycle with no end in sight. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.
And in a shocking development, a senior Hamas official told the Associated Press the group was surprised at the progress it was able to make. This, you're looking at it, surveillance video showing armed terrorists entering border cities. He said the group had expected to make slight gains and take prisoners to exchange for more political capital. But instead, terrorists traveling by paragliders and motorbikes infiltrated 22 towns. Some of them were 15 miles outside of the Gaza Strip. Even diverse communities that were living in relative peace were caught off guard by the attack. Chief Political Correspondent Scott Thuman joining us again to explain a bit more about what's going on the ground there. And Scott, we know that you've reported multiple times from the region in the past.
Yeah, Didi, the mayor of Efrat, someone I met 2 years ago while on assignment in Israel, his story is a rare one because of his goal to find new ways for Jews and Arabs to live peacefully together in that region. But he told me that this week, much of that has been shattered now due to what's happened, and here's how he assessed what concerns him most.
I'm sorry for the description, but there's no nice way to describe what the people who were attacked actually went through. People were burnt alive. Animals were burnt alive. People were witnessing their beloved ones going through this suffering. And again, I apologize for these descriptions, but this is what we are going through at the moment. And I think it is important that the world understands who we're dealing with.
The attack upending in many ways the years of work building any possible trust. In 2021, we, for full measure, profiled the town of Efrat. Because of that progress, I was there to see it firsthand. Mayor, I've spent time walking your very streets with you, talking about your serious efforts to try and make sure that Palestinians and Israelis could live together, could work together, could share property. Is all of that gone now?
You know, I'm taking a deep breath because I don't want to answer to yes. At the end of the day, there are people here on both sides that I do honestly believe that the vast majority of them want to live peacefully one alongside the other. On the other hand, I have to admit, the scenes, the pictures, the stories, the witnesses that we are hearing from what happened there during that Saturday morning is definitely raising a lot of doubts as to how we move from here forward. And I think what is lacking is to see the Arab people standing against their regimes and saying to them, listen, we don't want this type of future.
He says it elicits a warning to others, including America.
What we've suffered here during this weekend could happen anywhere, because we see that if they are funded well enough, if they're coordinated well enough, they can carry out a brutal attack. So here it was in a musical peace party out in the nature. It can happen in a concert in the middle of DC or Baltimore or New York. There's nothing to stop them because these people And you know what, when I say people, I would reconsider if I can call them people, because these people are not human beings.
Mayor, I know a lot of progress has been made over the years to try and tamp down some of the animosity, some of the fear, some of the terror, and some of the violence from, frankly, both sides. Do you believe there is a solution that can work moving forward now?
I think after such a bloody, vicious, cruel weekend, we've moved quite a few steps back. It will take a very long time to heal the wounds, to start building the trust again. We're not talking about it at the moment.
And the comparison he made was calling this Israel's 9/11. Their population compared to America's, he said it would be as if the United States suffered more than 3,000 deaths on September 11th. He says it would be closer to 30,000 in proportion. Dee Dee.
Scott, thank you. Powerful words there. I spoke with experts this week about whether the U.S. could be at risk for an intelligence breakdown on the same scale. They told me more agencies are focusing on technical intelligence. That means they're collecting information on things like advanced weapon systems and their capabilities. But it leaves a shortfall when human intelligence operations aren't taken into account.
The Iranians' policy toward Israel has been the annihilation of Israel.
We had information in the United States intelligence community where we did not adequately analyze and exploit that information, and we had the tragedy of 9/11. My Israeli counterparts, I think in this instance, they're going to have to take a good look at themselves and see whether or not they are getting buried under the mountains of data.
The FBI says it's not aware of any threats from Hamas to the U.S., but the agency says it is prepared to change its security posture if it becomes necessary. Our coverage continues now with Ryan Smith in Washington. He explains why some of the country's most prominent lawmakers say this is a sign to review U.S. policies at the southern border.
The surprise terrorist attack on Israel by Hamas militants was pre-planned and well coordinated, shaking those inside the country to their core.
We have the most advanced and sophisticated military in the world. This is the most amount of Jews that have been murdered in a single day since the Holocaust.
The failure of both Israeli and American intelligence to detect the attack ahead of time, unleashing warnings here at home.
We need an immediate assessment of our own areas of weakness and a glaring weakness in our own southern border.
Former Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy pointing to the official numbers released by U.S. Customs and Border Protection, with arrests of those on the terror watch list so far at 154, a sharp increase from 98 the year before, 16 the year before that, and just 3 in 2019 and 2020.
Why are they coming to America? What do they have planned? And who are they communicating with?
Those questions should have been asked far more in the months leading up to 9/11, according to the 9/11 Commission, which laid out countless examples of missed threats and vulnerabilities, including at our border.
The restrictions that the 9/11 Commission recommended and that were actually implemented following the terrorist attacks with respect to immigrants have almost all been abandoned. For U.S. citizens, we still live in a post-9/11 world. At the border, we don't.
Critics of the Biden administration's border policies say those policies don't appear to consider external threats from terrorists around the world. The White House pushing back.
We continue to remain vigilant about terrorist threats to the homeland from anywhere.
In Washington, D.C., I'm Ryan Smith reporting.
Still to come, with all eyes on Hamas's role in Gaza, Israel is facing another grave threat. Our chief political correspondent Scott Thuman explains the growing concern that Hezbollah could take advantage of the situation.
They have provided the lion's share of the funding for the military wing of Hamas. They have provided training. They have provided capabilities. They have provided support.
While he stopped short of saying Iran was behind the attack, President Biden's national security advisor placing a fair share of the blame on Iran. And in light of those comments, the Biden administration's policies towards Iran coming under scrutiny. Here's the National Desk, Kayla Gaskins.
As the smoke from this weekend's horrific attacks settles over Israel, experts on the Middle East tend to agree there's no way Hamas pulled this off alone. In the immediate aftermath, Hamas leaders went on camera thanking Iran for weapons, money, and rockets that made the attack possible. And while Biden made the United States' position on the conflict clear,
let there be no mistake, the United States stands with the state of Israel.
Critics say his policies towards Iran set the conditions for this unprecedented level of attack.
They are wealthier, richer, and stronger under this Biden administration, and they're using that wealth to fund terrorism, attacking our allies and killing Americans.
At the center of the backlash, $6 billion of Iranian assets freed up in a deal for 5 American hostages. This money meant strictly for humanitarian purposes, but Iran making it clear they can use the funds however they want. Secretary of State Antony Blinken pushing back on the criticism.
The account is closely regulated by the U.S. Treasury Department, so it can only be used for things like food, medicine, medical equipment.
Richard Goldberg with the Foundation for Defense of Democracy says giving Iran access to this money for humanitarian aid frees up money in other areas of their budget, thus allowing more money for funding terrorist organizations.
We should not be allowing Iran, the sponsor of Hamas, the supporter of Hamas, to have any money whatsoever. We should be doing all we can to cut off the supply of cash, both to Tehran and the terrorist organizations themselves.
A Hamas spokesperson told the BBC they had Iran's direct backing for these attacks, and the Wall Street Journal reporting Iranian officials spent weeks helping Hamas plan, but Iran saying they had no direct involvement. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
We want to make sure that Israel has what it needs. At the same time, President Biden was very clear in sending a message to anyone in any other area who might try to take advantage of the situation not to.
In some of his first public comments to the American public, Secretary of State Antony Blinken making it clear that the U.S. will not tolerate any groups who decide to escalate the situation in the Middle East. The threats to Israel are not just coming from Gaza in the south. To the north is another grave concern. Scott Thuman back to explain. Scott.
Didi, this is the region that we're talking about here up in the north, up in the top of Israel, where you're near the Golan Heights. But also, as you can see, you've got Syria and Lebanon just above. And so this is where Israeli intelligence forces are digging in now with soldiers and artillery units because they're worried about a second front, more attacks, some sporadic already coming in from Lebanon and from Hezbollah. Hezbollah, which has been designated a terrorist group by the U.S., closely linked to Iran and would like little more than to also see the destruction of Israel. And according to some reports, Hezbollah warned Israel that it would ramp up attacks if Israel stepped up its siege on Gaza. This is us 2 years ago, embedded with Israeli defense forces on this exact stretch. We rode along that dangerous section where just days before we arrived, Hezbollah launched 19 rockets into the area atop Mount Dov, a targeted area. And military members explained to us the constant threat from Hezbollah.
It has a lot to do with Iran. Iran is the sponsor for Hezbollah. Iran continues to bring the precision-guided missiles know-how and capabilities, and that is something that we're trying to stop.
That, of course, means that they are fighting on multiple fronts as major attacks and rocket launches from this region continue, and Israelis fleeing that section as well. Didi.
Scott, thank you. Ahead, aid groups are now warning of a growing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The critical supplies the United Nations says it's unable to deliver. On Wednesday, Gaza's only power station shut down after running out of fuel. That means the densely populated area is now without electricity, water, and food, following a complete siege by the Israeli government. The United Nations says it hasn't been able to access the Gaza Strip since Saturday, meaning critical supplies will run out soon. They're warning of a new humanitarian crisis. The past week has shown us one of the clearest examples of the discord between Israel and Palestine, but the tensions, they've been escalating for years. Scott Thuman joining us again with a look at why, Scott.
Didi, we've shown you a lot of reporting from inside Israeli territory and cities. So for a little perspective, we wanted you to see, a bit of life inside Palestinian land, including those contentious settlements. Now, this is from 2 years ago when we were on assignment for Full Measure. We were in the West Bank, including Ramallah, which is the capital for Palestinians. It's a spot where, over the decades, there have been countless skirmishes and fighting, protests, and deaths in this age-old dispute. Palestinians, among other reasons, telling us how they're angry that they have little control over who can come and go. That is instead up to Israeli defense forces. They also have very limited use of water, constantly rationing it, and that is a massive sticking point. Residents told me back then how they feel oppressed and punished in their own neighborhoods, as well as a conversation I had with the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, who we sat down with for an interview.
There is no way that one can justify colonization, that the indigenous people are benefiting from somebody is taking their homes, occupying their territory, confiscating their rights.
I think both sides are wrong. But when you see Israeli on one side kicking people out of their houses, not letting people in their own areas where they live, but that's not a solution. They both have to live in peace.
So just showing you from their perspective some of the points of contention. Didi.
And Scott, the perspective important to keep in mind is pro-Palestinian movements in America are gaining momentum. Many of them now also sparking backlash. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has been covering this story for us all week and explains the national conversation.
The White House lit up in white and blue, symbolizing President Biden's commitment to Israel in the wake of Hamas's surprise weekend massacre.
So in this moment, we must be crystal clear. We stand with Israel.
But coming from Biden's left flank, a vocal anti-Israel push. Pro-Palestinian rallies happening nationwide. At Harvard, students publishing a letter saying Israel is entirely responsible for the violence. Similar statements coming from students at Columbia and Northwestern, calling it a grievous miscarriage of justice to portray Palestinians as the aggressors. Former president of Harvard University, Larry Summers, tweeting, "In nearly 50 years of Harvard affiliation, I have never been as disillusioned and alienated as I am today." New York Democratic Congressman Richie Torres adding, "These hateful Harvard students are the future leaders of our society. May God help us." On Capitol Hill, progressive Democrats Rashida Tlaib and Cori Bush calling for the U.S. to cease funding for Israel, sparking intense backlash among their colleagues. New Jersey Democrat Josh Gottheimer telling Jewish Insider, "It sickens me that while Israelis clean the blood of their family members shot in their homes, they believe Congress should strip U.S. funding to our Democratic ally."
We believe they're wrong. We believe they're repugnant, and we believe they're disgraceful. There can be no equivocation about that. There are not two sides here. There are not two sides.
A Palestinian flag still standing outside Rashida Tlaib's office on Tuesday. Tlaib is the daughter of Palestinian immigrants.
There has been a shift within the Democrat Party towards Palestinians over Israelis. And I think that's the result of unrelenting media negativity towards Israel.
A Gallup poll from March showed an 11-point increase in just the past year of sympathy for Palestinians among Democrats, marking the first time sympathy for Palestinians outweighed sympathy for Israelis on the political left. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Many people now searching for any way to help the families affected by this war. I spoke to relief organizations on the ground to learn more about their efforts and what you can do to help their mission. Getting emergency food and supplies in the middle of a war zone is a monumental task, but that is the challenge underway for humanitarian groups trying to help those in the middle of the war between Israel and Hamas. For both civilians and emergency services personnel, it's a scramble to find a safe place to go. And as you can imagine, I'm told much of the help is being offered under fire.
The mood here is sad, tense, and determined.
Director General of the Israel Office of the Jewish Federations of North America, Rebecca Caspi, spoke to us from her home office in a Jerusalem suburb. She recalls visiting a pregnant woman at a hospital who had been pulled out of the rubble in a home that had been shelled.
She had to wait for many hours until the army was able to clear a path to her. And then she had to be evacuated under fire with a member of the armed forces lying on top of her.
While Caspi says their emergency medical services personnel have taken casualties. Doctors Without Borders says there's not enough medical personnel to deal with those critically injured and dying in the Gaza Strip. Across the region, humanitarian groups are scrambling to help as people worldwide want to know how they can help.
You really need to go to established organizations that have the structure, have the know-how to be there and get the job done.
Though popular, the Better Business Bureau's Tom Bartholomew says crowdsourcing on social media isn't the place to make this kind of donation.
This is going to take a long time, and we need you there standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel.
Many people in the U.S. want to help. On the Better Business Bureau's give.org, there's a list of charities that have been vetted and verified. We posted the link for you on our website, thenationaldesk.com. And that'll be all for us on this special edition of The National Desk, America's News Now. You can catch us live from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Just check your local listings. You can also watch us online and catch up with the latest headlines and keep up with breaking developments on the situation in the Middle East on thenationaldesk.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Monday morning.